yogis. Welcome to a video that has some suggestions of how to relieve neck and shoulder discomfort and hopefully strengthen some of the muscles that can lead to some of that discomfort. This video is not meant for anybody who is in pain or spasming. You might come back to this video when you're feeling much more comfortable. We're going to need some unusual props for this class. One is a hand towel, something about this size. And we're going to start the class with this. So you might want to pause the video and go get this. And while you're at it, find a serving spoon, something that has a good handle for you to hold on to. We'll also need a chair, a dining room chair, an occasional chair, anything you feel comfortable sitting in. Even perhaps an upholstered chair would work if that's in your space. And we'll also need our typical blocks and strap. So let's get started. When you've got your towel, we're going to fold it the long way first, and then get a nice tight roll, starting at the short end of the blanket and rolling it up, getting it as tight as you can. And I like to have the folded edge closer to my hips. My head is going to go here. Here's my blanket roll, and I'm setting it down on the edge that is left over, kind of almost the salvage edge, so that will stay in place. Turning my body, I'm letting myself down slowly so I can get the bottom of that blanket roll somewhere around the bottom of the scapula. I'm slowly letting my spine come down onto that and have my arms out to the sides, palms face up, in a gesture of openness and surrender. If you know that you would be happier with your head on a little bit of height, you can take it. But I will say that the low height of a block is really too high for most bodies. Maybe a folded blanket might work. So here we are, laying on this blanket between the scapula. And at first I'm sure there's this feeling that you want to levitate up off of this. And after a few moments, maybe you'll start to settle down a little bit, especially if you tilt your tailbone up a little. So that's going to put a little stress, a little pressure on the lower side of that towel roll. And then slowly release the tuck of the tail. Perhaps you can let the head rock a little side to side. That's a very slow, gentle motion of the head rocking from side to side. So you're getting a little bit of a back skull massage. We can bring that motion to stillness. And if you're wearing glasses, you might take your glasses off for this part. We're going to take our fingers and place the fingertips right above the brow and very slowly move the skin up toward the hairline, and then reset the fingertips above the brow and do that again. So we're doing this action of kind of ironing out the skin of the forehead from the brow all the way up to the hairline. You might even want to go a little bit beyond the hairline. That's up to you. If that feels really good, you might like a little bit more of a scalp massage. And replace the fingertips so they go a little bit wide of the brow. Maybe the ring fingers come in right at the center of the forehead as they work their way up. And then we'll place the fingertips on the temples very lightly, drawing circles around the temples. You can probably get 3 of your finger pads on each side of the eye up near the temple area. And then reverse the direction of those circles. Slowly slide or glide the fingertips down to the very top of the cheekbone. And go ahead and do a few circles there in both directions. And then the fingers will glide out to the sides of the face, down out near where the jaw connects, the lower jaw connects, and slide the fingers down there out to the full jaw. So I can get easily my 3 longest fingers on my jaw, and I'm just running the fingers back and forth on the jawline. You'll figure out what feels good. Eventually the fingers are going to run down the sides of the neck to find the collarbones, and you can walk your fingers on the top part of the collarbones all the way out to the edges, and then find right below the collarbone and give yourself a little massage there. Next, we'll let the arms go out to the sides, kind of in a karate chop look. So the hands are balancing on the pinky side finger, and we're going to slide one hand to the right hand to the right, and slide the left hand to the left. And we're going back and forth in this motion, just letting the hands glide on the floor, and they glide best if they're on that edge, that outside edge of the hand. And making our way back to center, we'll bring the pads of the fingers to the back of the skull, help the head up a little bit, drop the hands down, and then we can press ourselves all the way up to a seated position. We can set that roll aside and reach for the strap. And we're going to take the strap around the back body. I'm going to do this nice and slowly, so hopefully everybody will get it on the first go. Here's the strap around my back body. I'm going to take the ends of the strap and put it up over my shoulders. And I'm working to make sure that the strap is flat and doesn't have any twists to it. So there's the strap over the top of the shoulders, and the ends are hanging out to the sides. Now I'm going to reach behind me to grab opposite sides of the strap so I can pull it around and have it pulled pretty tightly. So I'm going to turn this way so you can see what the strap looks like. I had it in my fingers here. I let it fall in the back. Then I reach around and I grab onto opposite sides of the strap so that I can form an X on the upper part of the back. Now, you will take the tail end of the strap, slide it through both D-rings, back through the center of the 2 D-rings, and that's how we get the cinch for this contraption that's hopefully going to give us a little body intelligence about how we are experiencing the upper back. So there's the strap. The first thing we're going to do is make sure you're in a comfortable seated position. Bring the arms up to cactus pose. And bring the arms forward, 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 crossing the elbows and wrapping the hands around if you can. If that's not available to you, it's fine to just have the elbows resting on top, one on top of the other. If you can get all the way around, we're then going to lift and lower the elbows, lifting up and down. Now, many of us practice this eagle pose with relative frequency, and this with the belt on is going to feel a whole lot different. And in fact, it may be impeding so much that it's hard to actually get the elbows to come together because of the tightness of the strap. Let's open up the arms back to cactus pose and come in on the second side, opposite elbow on top for a little reaching and lowering. And see that the elbows are jutting forward just a little bit. Lifting up and down, and one more time, lifting up, coming all the way down, and resting the hands on the legs. Next, we're going to take the right 3 longest fingers, place them on the cheekbone, and let the head look side to side, trying to keep your wrist in a neutral position. If this is not possible for your hand to be in this position with a neutral wrist, you can place the heel of the hand on the cheekbone. It just doesn't quite feel as good for the wrist to be that bent for some hands. So we're putting a little isometric tension on the side of the face, which is resulting in the neck having to do a little bit more work. Coming back to center, we'll switch to the other side. Left fingers on the cheekbone. And this is not a lot of pressure. We're not trying to overdo. We're just giving the neck a little bit of feedback and working on strengthening those muscles. And when we come back to center again, we'll drop that hand down. Next, we take right hand up and over the head so that the fingertips are pointing down toward the left ear. I'm trying to get the top of my head to lean right as my right hand works to hold it in place. Again, setting up that isometric tension for a little work on the neck. Keep the breath flowing and the gaze soft. Now we'll replace that hand so the heel of the hand is right above the ear on the right side, and we're pressing the head into that hand. As soon as you feel that tension set up, that's enough. You don't need to go any further. Keep the breath soft and silky. And let's release from that side, and we'll practice on the second side. Left hand on top of the head, fingertips pointing down toward the ear. The head is trying to move a little bit over to the right, and the hand is resisting that. We're just leaving that action to happen for a few more moments. And then taking the hand away, replacing the heel of the hand right above the ear on the skull, and then pressing into the head as the hand resists. And we'll release from that for one more of these actions where the head is down just a little bit. So the gaze can be on the floor in front of you. The hand goes up to right hand goes up to the right side of the head. And with the head down a little bit, we're pressing energy into the side of the head. Then we'll replace the fingertips on the outside and press there. And release from that. You can bring the head up to its neutral position, and we'll repeat on the second side. Head a little bit forward, heel of the hand against the skull on the left side, setting up the tension. And replacing the hand to be over the head, fingertips looking down toward the ear as we set up the tension with a pull of the head over to the left as the hand resists that action. And go ahead and let go of that. Next, we're going to interlace our fingers together, put them on the back of the skull, and again, we've got the elbows moving forward and that tensile state for the neck to be working. Here, you should be able to feel those upper back muscles working also. The scapula, hopefully, is kind of plastered down on the back body, getting those muscles to really strengthen. Even, steady flow of breath. And then one more of these with the heels of the hands on the forehead and a little pressing back of the head, but the head is resisting that action. And release from that. We'll now make little fists with our hands, gentle fists, and place the knuckles of the middle finger and the index finger right alongside the jaw, where the head is trying to come down and the hands are pressing up. If you have any TMJ issues, this is probably something to forego, but you can really feel the muscles of the back of the neck working to keep the head from going back. And we'll release from that for a few shoulder shrugs. You might do 2 together, you might do 1 at a time. Just kind of see what happens. I'm sometimes a fan of 1 at a time. And then go ahead and circle the shoulders around. And try the opposite direction. Okay, we'll let that go and curl the tops of the fingers over so that we can get the fingers making this kind of clamp action, pulling the fingers apart, and then the head is going to slide right and left with the chin trying to make its way into the crux of the elbow. The head is sliding side to side, and the hands are really working as if they're trying to pull the fingers long. And come back to center. Let's change whichever hold you had, and we'll do it again on the second side. This time, maybe there's a little bit more reach of the chin toward the inside part of your elbow. And we'll come all the way back, allow that to come down. And now we can reach for the serving spoon. And the serving spoon is really to give ourselves a little bit of a massage. It works really well in the area of the hair. On the skin, it might be a little bit more sticky, but I'm massaging the side of the neck all the way to the back of the neck, and then starting to go a little bit further down. So it depends on how long the handle is of the spoon that you're using, but you might be able to get into some of those muscles back there, especially those strong muscles right on the side of the neck. When you feel like you've been curious in lots of areas on that side, we can go to the other side. Doing the neck all the way up into the hairline, all the way to the back of the neck, and then starting to make the way down toward the shoulders. I don't know, somebody might have a spoon long enough that you can get down to the scapula. You'll kind of check that out. Okay, now we can set the spoon aside. And I'm going to take my right hand, bring it behind my back body, and I'm able to hold on to my hand behind my back body because I have a lot of rotation in my shoulder. Some of you are not going to be able to do that. Some might be holding the hand a little bit further back. It's also possible just to hold the hand behind the back body low, even maybe interlace the fingers back there. The more you can get that arm to come around the back side, the more you might feel this stretch as the head goes away from that shoulder. And we'll pick the head up on this side, getting ready to do it on the second side. So my hand is coming all the way around, and if you're not able to get the hand well on the other side, have it as far over as you can. So as the head now leans to the right, you'll feel that really intense stretch on the left side of the neck. And we'll pick up the head, release the hands behind the back body, and now we're going to the chin, really trying to go down toward the top part of the armpit on the right side. Try to resist that temptation to hunch the upper back as this happens. You're trying to sit up straight and tall with the sternum lifting is the chin is yearning toward that upper part of the right armpit. Go ahead and pick the head up, and we're going to repeat on the second side. Now the chin is going toward the left armpit, and we're trying to keep that right shoulder down and the sternum lifting just a little bit. And go ahead and pick up the head. And we're going to now come up to a standing position. Yogi's choice how you get there. I'm planting my hands on the mat, picking my hips up, getting my feet underneath me, and slowly coming up to a standing position. You'll need a wall space. And if you need to walk away from your screen to get to the wall space, take a look and see what I'm going to do first, and then you can go there. The first thing I'm doing is standing about 6 inches away from the wall with my hands up as high as they can go. I'm going to tuck my tail just a little bit and practice taking my arms away from the wall and back on, and away from the wall and back on. So we're going to do this a few times, and then the arms are going to open up a little bit more as a Y, and practice again there. So when you get to the wall, the first expression of this movement is for the arms to be straight up, or as much straight as you can get them, and then the arms come away and back on. And hopefully the strap jacket that you have on is helping you to feel the scapular movement on your back. You determine how far away from the wall you need to be to keep your shoulders healthy. After you've done that a few times with the arms more or less straight up, let them come out to a bit of a Y. If you need to step in closer to make this more effective, or further away to make it more safe, please do that. The arms are coming away and then back in. Feel the groundedness of your feet in this pose. Feel the strength of your legs. In fact, you might even excite the muscles of the legs as the arms come back and forth. The next time the hands are on the wall, go ahead and slide the hands down the wall and step back. The next thing we're doing is the palm of the hand is on the wall at shoulder height. You can see that my hand is on the wall at shoulder height. I'm standing right in front of it. I have my opposite hand on my waist, and I'm starting to move away so that the degree of turnout for my feet, my toes are coming away from the wall. And I'm seeing how far I can do that very slowly, thoughtfully, mindfully, keeping the scapula down on the side that you're practicing on. And when we're ready, we come out of that pose by turning toward the wall and put up the opposite hand about shoulder height, just finding a way to be comfortable there. And then we start to walk the toes away. If you need to bend the arm a little bit to feel more comfortable and then re-straighten the elbow, that's fine. If you want to put a little pressure of the palm of the hand on the wall as you start to turn away, that's fine too. We're just seeing how far we can go, turning away, opening up that front of the shoulder of the side that you're working on. And we'll turn toward the wall to come out of that pose. The next thing we're doing, you need a corner. And behind the back of a door is usually a really good place to find a corner in your house if you don't have one that's really obvious. And again, you might have to walk away from the screen, so take a look and see what I'm going to do. I'm coming into the corner with my nose facing the corner. Arms up to cactus pose, pelvis in a neutral position. And I'm walking forward until my hands and my elbows are resting on the wall in cactus pose. Then I'm going to lean forward a little bit without letting my hips come back. My whole body's trying to be in a plank as I lean forward and then slowly come out. And again, leaning forward and slowly coming out. And you can hold that pose if you choose to, but do be sure that the scapula feels like it's really descending on the back body. Maybe you find a little bit more elasticity in the shoulders, being able to come forward. Please do not overdo. You can always do it a third, a fourth, a fifth time later on today. Let the hands come down, and that's that activity. We can take the strap off. If you prefer to keep it on and only take it off when you've really kind of had it, then that's fine too. But I'm going to take my strap off for practicing a few poses on the belly. I'm setting that aside, and I'm going to open up a blanket because I always think that to be on a blanket is more comfortable for the front body. I have my blanket in the 4-ply fold, and there it is, and I'm coming onto my belly into Sphinx pose. If Sphinx pose is a little bit too difficult for you to get into for your low back, you just slide your elbows forward to make it a little bit more comfortable. In full Sphinx, the upper arm bone is basically perpendicular to the floor. And here I'm going to jut my chin forward and then retract it back. I'm jutting forward and retracting it back. 2 more times, jut forward, retract it back in, and one last time, forward and back. Now I'm going to let myself down, 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 until I'm resting on my lower ribs. My arms have slid way further forward. I'm going to lift my arms up with my palms face up. You can even do this in hitchhiker pose. Bring the arms all the way back and then forward again. The arms come back in a variation of Savasana and forward. You can have the gaze looking down at the mat. You don't have to have the head craned way back, as the arms do this big sweeping arc action, coming back and forward. And one last time, if you can do it, coming back and forward. Hands come down, stacking the hands in front of the forehead. Forehead drops down, and a very slow rocking action of the hips, right and left. And you can release that action. Draw the hands back to the side body so that the thumbs are touching the outside edges of your ribs, coming up into whatever back bend you like to practice, and then all the way up to all fours. I'm going to fold my blanket back now. I'm going to use it to protect my knees while I'm in all fours. And from here, I'm going to practice cat-cow. So you can join me in practicing cat-cow by lifting the tailbone and lifting the chin simultaneously, and then tucking the tail and dropping the crown of the head, but keep that powerful strength of the arms. So this is one way of practicing cat-cow, a more typical way. And if you want a little variation from this, you will tuck the tail and ride that all the way up the spine until the crown of the head goes down. Keep the crown of the head down as you start to lift the tail. Ride that wave all the way up through the spine until you finally lift the head as a last movement. The tail tucks, ride it up the spine, crown of the head goes down, and then the tail starts to lift as we ride that all the way through the spine and the head comes up. If you've only practiced cat-cow in the more traditional way, it can be challenging to get the mind to reprint that patterning that you've set up. Okay, let's drop down into Sphinx pose to do a little bit more cat-cow from here. And here, it really does work better, I think, to have the tuck of the tail and the drawing in of the chin, the lifting of the chin and tailbone at the same time. Making our way back to all fours. I'm going to have my hands a little bit further forward than I usually do for all fours. I'm going to bring my left foot to the outside of my left hand. I'm going to balance on the right hand as the left arm reaches up toward the ceiling. Then the elbow bends and my elbow is reaching for the inside of my left ankle. Again, reach up with the left hand and come down to touch somewhere on the inside edge of that left foot. Arm reaches up and comes down. You don't have to be practicing at my pace. You can set up a pace that works for you. Hopefully it's not too fast, because I think we learn more about the body when the movement is slow and graceful. And the next time you're coming through the center, we'll place that left hand down, bring the left foot back. You might move the hands over just a little bit to the left side to give yourself space to plant that right foot to the outside edge of the right hand. The right arm reaches up, the elbow bends, and we reach down for somewhere on the inside edge of that right leg. And one more time with the reach of the arm, coming down. And finally the hand plants down and the leg comes all the way back. Now we can reach for our blocks. So we can do some lunges and plank pose. I'm walking my blocks forward. And this time I'm going to start with my right foot coming forward, sinking down into the low lunge, curling the back toes under, taking that back foot up off the floor, compacting the hips, starting to transfer the weight just into my feet as the arms reach back, the torso peels up, 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 arms reach up overhead, and then I see how far down I can go comfortably, still keeping that back knee well up off the floor. I'll bring the hands down to heart center, start to bow forward, reach for the blocks, front foot comes back to meet the back foot in high plank pose. In high plank, we'll take a few dips. I'm sorry that I didn't mention that my blocks are on the medium height, but I'm taking a few dips here with the elbows going back toward my hips and then coming back up again. I'm going to lift my hips a little bit to now bring my left foot forward, sink my right knee down, unflick the toes, start to come up with my torso, arms reaching up overhead. Bringing the hands to heart center, hands come all the way down, back toes curl under, knee comes up off the floor. I'm starting to transfer the weight just into my feet, so I come up onto my fingertips as I'm squeezing my body in toward the midline. Arms reach back first to find my balance, and then I'm peeling my torso up, up, up. Arms reach up, and I see how low I can get my heel in the back as my fingertips reach for the ceiling. Dropping the hands down again to heart center, bowing action forward, hands to the blocks, front foot back to meet the back foot to get into high plank pose. We'll drop one or both knees down, depending on how comfortable you feel with that. And I'm setting the blocks aside so we can practice thread the needle. I'm lifting up my left arm first, coming all the way down to land on the shoulder, keeping my chin well away from the floor. I'm replacing my right hand on the floor until I get to that real comfortable sweet spot. I'm reaching long with my left arm underneath the body. To come out of the pose, I'm pressing energy down into the right hand to come all the way up, and we'll practice on the second side. Right arm reaches up, comes all the way down and through, and see that that's a nice long reach coming over to the second side before you land down. The left hand can get replaced, so we're getting some really serious twisting action here, setting up a bind with the floor. Even, steady flow of breath. And when you're ready, press energy down into that standing hand to make it all the way back to all fours. When you find your neutral spine, we'll send the hips back down to the heels, reaching the arms long, and then walking the hands over to the right side, releasing the head down toward the floor, just so we're not holding any tension in the neck. The forehead doesn't have to meet the floor, but we're just looking for that really big side stretch on the left side of the body and no tensile state or minimal tensile state in the neck. You can lift the head a little bit to walk the hands through center over to the left side and enjoy the stretch here. And the hands will come back up again so we can come up to all fours. We're going to do a little variation of rabbit pose. So instead of the full rabbit pose, we're going to have our hands on the floor, drop down into Sphinx pose, the crown of the head comes down onto the floor, and we're just going to find a little bit of rocking action, barely putting any weight on the head at all, but seeing what it's like to try to roll a little bit to the back of the skull on the head. The vast majority of the weight of my body is on my Sphinx arms. I probably have 1 or 2 pounds of weight on the head. It's very, very minimal. Let's come up out of that pose, and I'm going to fold up my blanket one more time so it's in that shape that I refer to as a cruller shape, thanks to Ann Curtis. And I'm walking myself forward so that I can do a few roll up and roll downs. That blanket is a lovely way, if you have a hard time with full roll up and roll downs, to put that blanket on the floor behind your hips so that you have a little bit of extra lift for the back body to make it up off of the floor. If you have extremely strong abs, you won't need it. You're going to be doing a roll down, trying to dot down one vertebrae at a time, and then chin into the chest as you slowly make your way back up again. Know that there's also a possibility, especially if you don't have a blanket and you don't feel like going all the way up and down, you can be doing half roll up and roll downs. Or maybe you're working on a combination of all of them. And one last time for whichever movement you are practicing, just remember keeping the chin into the chest if you're doing the full version of roll up and roll downs. Next, we're coming up for a few standing poses. I recommend swinging your legs around to all fours and coming up from there, or if you want to do more back strengthening, you can practice coming up with as little contact to the floor as possible. For me, it looks like this. I cross my feet at the ankles, I get energy coming forward, and I'm able to come up. Some of you will be able to do that by touching one hand down to come up off the floor. So here we are in a standing position, right arm forward, crosses the body, left hand holds that wrist, and I'm going to turn my head to the right and drop my chin as far out on that shoulder as I can. I'll retract my head back, drop the hand down, repeat on the second side. Left hand forward, crosses the midline of the body. The opposite hand holds that wrist. I turn my head to the left and find a way for my chin to perch as far out as I can on that shoulder. And retract the chin in and bring the arm down. Let's get one of our blocks for practicing triangle pose. I'm going to find a wide stance for my feet on my sticky mat. I have the block behind the back body. I'm going to turn the right toes in, left toes out, and then start to lean over that extended left leg with my torso, trying to keep that upper arm open. So that upper shoulder is trying to look up toward the ceiling. I'm going to drop the block down behind the foot. My right hand can go on my right waist, and then I can determine if I want to go down a little bit lower on the block. Some of you might want a little bit greater distance between your feet. And there's one possibility of reaching that free right arm straight up into the air, or maybe bringing it alongside the head. With an even, steady flow of breath, is there a way to lift the sternum just a little bit? To come out of the pose, we're going to bring the hand back to the waist, get a little micro bend in that front knee. You're going to bring the block with you and come all the way up to a standing position. Let's make the outside edges of the feet parallel. Hold the block behind the back body. Left toes in, right toes out. Find the length in the spine and keep it as you start to tilt over to the side. And now it's the left shoulder that's trying to come back. We'll drop the hand down toward the floor, and so you can determine the right height that you need that block to be on for your triangle pose. Shoulder back, hand can come to the hip, maybe the hand can reach up for the ceiling, and maybe the arm comes alongside the head. The extremities are really finding expression away from heart center. To come out of the pose, we bring the hand back to the waist or the area near the hip, a little bit of bend in the knee, and again, take the block with you as you come all the way up to a standing position. Make the outside edges of the feet parallel and heel toe the feet all the way back in. Well done. Next, we're practicing humble warrior. I'm taking the block and setting it aside, opening up my feet a good distance apart, turning in left toes out right toes, interlacing my fingers behind the back body and stretching them long. I'm coming into Virabhadrasana one legs and starting to make my way down. Now, if you do not feel comfortable with your balance, there's an option here to just reach back with the arms instead of interlacing the fingers. Please consider that. I'm starting to come further and further forward. My shoulder can touch my knee, and the crown of the head is yearning down toward the floor. Pressed arms or interlaced arms are reaching up for the ceiling. To come out of the pose, I'm pressing serious energy down into my feet to pull myself all the way up. We'll hold low in the hips, make the outside edges of the feet parallel, turn right toes in, left toes out. Yogi's choice if you're going to interlace the fingers or have the arms reaching back behind you. And as you start to come into the pose, we're bending the left knee, starting to release the torso down. Maybe that shoulder can touch the top of the knee, and that's one point of reference for that balance help, so that the crown of the head can be pointing down toward the floor in front of your left ankle. To come out of the pose, press energy down into that standing front foot all the way up. Hold low in the hips. Make the outside edges of the feet parallel. We'll bend the knees, coming into wide angle, downward facing dog. Keep the knees well bent for the hands to find the floor. The hands come forward, and then you can straighten or nearly straighten your legs as you drop the head, getting the ears between your arms. Arms are stretching long to press the hips back. Can you excite the muscles around your kneecaps? And to come out of this pose, we'll start to lift the face up a little bit, move the hands back, heel toe the feet in toward one another until you feel comfortable bringing the hands up to the hips and coming all the way up to a standing position. Let's do a back bend before we continue with any other standing poses. I'm turning sideways so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. I'm going to place the heels of my hands just a little bit below the waist. Fingertips are pointing down, thumb is open, and I'm pressing my hips forward as I lift the sternum. The hips go forward, the sternum lifts. The gaze can be up at the ceiling, but please don't let the head tip back too far. This is really for the low back, and we're trying to protect the low back by keeping a long spine, and that comes from the lift of the sternum. Maybe it'll allow you to come a little bit more into the back bend, and to come out, act as if I'm grabbing onto the front of your shirt and pulling you up out of the pose. Next, we'll practice a side stretch that looks like a curtsy, because it is. We're going to start with the hands on the hips and take gentle curtsies from side to side. Notice the placement of the back foot and how that can help stabilize the pose. You can continue doing this. Some of you, if you're on the younger side maybe and have super strong legs, you will go further and further down. It is possible to get the knee all the way down in the back, but it isn't important. The safety of your practice is far more important, so taking an easy curtsy is fine. If you want to ramp it up a little bit, you can bring the arms up overhead, one hand holding the wrist, and then coming over to the second side, opposite hand holds the wrist. And one more time to whichever side you're going to, coming back through center, and we'll do a little bit of balance prep. So balance prep, let's bring the hands together at heart center and let the left leg sway in front of the right leg. And we'll step that left foot down and go to the right side. Okay. And for the balance pose today, we're practicing the low balance. I'm going to stand on my right foot first, bringing the hands back to heart center, bringing my left leg up and over so that the outside of the ankle is touching somewhere above the knee of the right standing leg. Sending my hips as far back as I can muster so I don't put so much strain on that right knee. To come out of the pose, I'm powering up out of the pose, dropping my hands down at the same time the leg comes down, transferring over to the second side. Again, hands to heart center, leg up, starting to bend that standing leg, lowering the center of gravity. Even, steady flow of breath. Gaze soft and fixed. Find your drishti. And when you're ready to come up out of the pose, no rush, power up with those strong legs, with that strong leg, and get the foot down on the floor. The work that we're going to do with the chair today isn't a lot of work, so if you don't have a chair handy, maybe you just forego this altogether. Earlier I said that maybe an upholstered chair would work, but I'm not quite sure about that. From this plane, it will be easier to see, I think, where I'm reaching back for the chair and leaning forward, and that's getting the scapula to come in and hug the spine. I'm feeling a really big stretch in the pectoral muscles, and certainly the arms are working. I'm going to start to drop my head down, down, down as I continue to really reach forward and see how much energy I can let go in the back of the neck. And slowly come all the way up. If that felt good, it might be something that you repeat regularly. The next thing we're going to do, one more thing to do with the chair, I'm going to turn this way to make it a little bit easier to see. I'm leaning over to the right, so my right elbow is resting on the end of my right femur bone, and I'm going to start to bow forward as I grab onto the front of my shirt. That's just to get that hand out of the way. I'm leaning far enough forward that I can release the left arm and start to let centrifugal force help that arm go around in a circle. I'm trying not to muscle this through, but just have that real easy flowing motion for my full arm. You can drop the head so you're not holding tension. Let's reverse the direction of that circle. So we're not holding too much tension in the neck, but instead finding a nice stretch of the back of the neck. We'll slow down that action, make our way up to a seated position, and practice on the second side. Left elbow comes down really well toward the knee. Start to bow forward, grab onto the shirt unless you have another way of getting that hand out of the way, dropping the right arm down and making circles with that arm. Thinking about fewest fibers fired. So we're really trying to do this as effortlessly as possible. And let's reverse the direction of that circle. And we'll slow down that action, coming all the way up to a seated position, bringing the legs together, and we can put the chairs away. I trust you'll find your way down onto the floor, so we can do a little bit of floor work before we go into inversions. We already did some of the rolling up and rolling down. If that is more comfortable in your practice and you want to work on your abdominal and core strength, then you'll continue to do this work. For those of you who have practiced plow before, we're going to go into plow pose. Plow pose is when the feet actually touch down to the floor. The setup is to make sure that you have most of your mat behind you so that we can come onto the back body and with care press the elbows down into the floor. The head is on the floor, the hips lift and the legs come up. This is a nice way for getting into half shoulder stand. If you want to take this further, the feet can start to come down toward the floor. One lovely pose is for the legs to be parallel with the ceiling or the floor. You can release the hands down onto the floor so that the palms are face down in the same direction that the hips are facing. Maybe you can slowly let the feet come down toward the floor. And if you do that, then you're going to keep the legs very close to your torso as you slowly roll out, letting the vertebrae touch down one at a time and take the weight of the body. We'll do that one more time. You can practice with the hands down on the floor or the elbows bent, yogi's choice, but we're pressing energy down into the arms to bring the hips up, maybe finding full plow, maybe getting into that lovely pose where the legs are parallel to the floor, and then slowly rolling out, really getting energy and weight to come down on the vertebrae. And finally, the feet will touch down to the floor, the legs will go long in Supta Tadasana, reclined mountain pose. We'll bend the right knee, bringing the right toes to the inside edge of the left knee. Then the right knee crosses the midline of the body. You might take your left hand on the outside edge of the right foot and set up just a tiny bit of isometric tension so you can feel that stretch in the IT band structure. Maybe you can let the hand win out a little bit, letting the knee come a little further down toward the floor, and then release the hold of the hand on the leg, roll the hips back, coming back into Supta Tadasana to practice on the second side. Make sure the legs are relatively close together. You'll draw up the left knee, left big toe finds the inside edge of the right leg, probably somewhere around the knee. I just like to practice that way because it gives a little purchase point for the leg to be a little more comfortable. Right hand could be on the outside edge of the left leg, and maybe you kind of coax it a little further into the twist if that feels good for your practice today. And then roll all the way out, allowing that leg to go long. And on the wings of your breath, you'll bring the head up toward the chest, press yourselves up to a seated position, and set up for an inversion. I'm making a little time in this video for practitioners to do a little inversion. The definition of inversion is for the hips and the legs to be higher than the heart. My yogis know which inversions they like and they practice them regularly. If you're one of my yogis, you've got the props, go ahead and do your inversion. I'm going to demonstrate a very simple inversion that doesn't exactly meet the definition of hips higher than the heart, but many of us have a piece of furniture around where we can get our lower legs up on the furniture and then come down. So this is a very modified version of Viparita Karani, which translates to legs up the wall. However, this is a lot easier to get into and still has the benefits of allowing the body to be quite calm and have a little reverse action for our limbic system. For the next few moments, enjoy the ease of the flow of the breath. Steady breath in and steady breath out. Go ahead and relax the muscles of the face and the jaw. Continue to notice and release all areas of tension in the body. If you are practicing half shoulder stand, maybe you want to start coming out now. For those of you practicing different forms of inversion, you can stay in as long as you want and eventually make your way out to rest for a few moments in Shavasana. Now that I know that most of you have one of those hand towels nearby, you might use that over your eyes when you come into Shavasana. And I'll demonstrate coming into Shavasana, lying down with the arms out to the sides, palms face up. Some people like a little bit of height underneath the knees. Some people practice with an eye pillow, and my suggestion is that you can use the hand towel over the eyes to help limit how much stimulation you're taking in. Relaxing the facial expression, relaxing the jaw, and feeling as if the top part of the body is some sort of blanket, layering all the way down to the bottom part of the body, making the whole body quite heavy and still. For the last few moments in Shavasana, pay particular attention to the breath and where the inhale turns into the exhale, and where the exhale turns into the inhale. You might start to bring some movement into the fingers by moving them around, maybe sending energy out to the heels of your feet by flexing the calf muscle, flexing the ankles, and eventually you'll draw one knee into the chest, second knee into the chest, to roll over onto a side and press yourselves up to a seated position. Hands drawn together at heart center, Anjali Mudra. Namaste.